Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Office of Justice Programs has requested a 16% increase in funding, with some programs receiving an increase of 80% or more. While I appreciate Ms. Johnson coming to testify, I do wish that we had the Department Director here to speak more about the various programs and grants operated by OJP. Ask about the Project Safe Neighborhoods Block Grant Program, which seeks to combat criminal street gangs and transnational crime groups and is up for reauthorization. Can you describe the types of grants utilized by this program?
Yes, the budget requests $40 million for Project Safe Neighborhoods. It's a nationwide initiative that brings together federal, state, local, and tribal law enforcement officials, among other stakeholders. It's coordinated by the U.S. attorneys in the 94 federal judicial districts. And it's customized to account for local violent crime problems and resources.
I note that a bipartisan group of senators has legislation to reauthorize the program, but also adds much needed transparency requirements. For example, how the area that received the funding spent the funds from the program, the total number of criminal prosecutions carried out, disaggregated by the number of federal and state prosecutions, and the results of those prosecutions, the community outreach efforts performed in the area, and the number and description of the violent crime offenses committed in the area. Wouldn't you agree that these transparency requirements are necessary to ensure an effective grant program?
I believe that transparency in general is favorable.
Thank you. Roughly $2.2 million has been awarded to the Vera Institute of Justice, which according to their website is committed to pretrial justice by ending money bail. Last week, the House Judiciary Committee, which I'm also a member of, held a hearing in New York City to shed light on pervasive problems we're seeing in Democrat-led cities across the country, a result of progressive policies like ending cash bail. In fact, in New York, the state legislature passed bail reform in 2019. Since then, a March 2023 study by researchers at John Jay College found that recidivism rates increased for violent felony offenders after implementation of the new bail reform law. In my home state of Virginia, we were proud that as a result of reforms that we took back in the 90s, including abolition of parole, that we became the we had the least, the lowest rate of recidivism of any state in the country. And that's something that Virginia was very proud of. Wouldn't you agree that it's wrong for DOJ to provide millions of dollars in grants to organizations that advocate for policies that lead to further victimization by allowing repeat offenders to be released back into society?
I'm not familiar with the details of the sources that you're citing, but I would say that, again, reducing violent crime, supporting effective reentry programs remains a priority for the department and the Office of Justice Programs.
As a former prosecutor of domestic violence, I know all too well the importance of the Violence Against Women Act and the programs administered by the Office of Violence Against Women. In the written testimony, you make note of some of the ways in which this office is assisting local communities like Lynchburg, Virginia, which I represented prior to redistricting for my first 2 terms. Ms. Randall, how much emphasis is placed by the Office on Violence Against Women on restorative justice programs?
Our office is really focused on supporting state and local law enforcement and prosecution in responding to domestic violence and sexual assault, as well as victim service providers. Congress has administered a small amount, I believe last year it was $15 million for restorative justice.
Okay, would you agree that restorative justice requires both parties agree to participate?
Yes, that's in fact a requirement in the statute.
Okay, yeah, in fact, a major component of a restorative justice program is that the defendant apologizes to the victim, and the victim accepts this apology, often in the presence of the defendant, correct?
Not necessarily, but the key requirement is that restorative justice would only work if the victim agrees that they want this process at all, and then the process itself must be driven by the victim and what they want. If they don't want to receive an apology, they shouldn't.
Sometimes there's pressure for the victim to participate in these programs by a prosecutor in order to get a plea deal?
While we haven't launched our program yet, it won't be connected to prosecution, but there should never be pressure on victims. I completely agree with you that pressure on victims is a problem.
I agree, and that's why restorative justice is a poor fit for domestic violence cases, but I yield back.